Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Dead to Rights, the podcast. We'd like to wish a very happy Easter and a blessed Passover to all our friends. For those of you who are just joining us and have never listened to Dead to Rights before, we're all about the book industry. Anything you want to know or ask about the writing, the art, the business, the marketing, anything we can help you with, we're happy to provide answers. Or if you're a published writer and you'd like to be featured on Dead to Rights, by all means get in touch with us at carrickpublishing@rogers.com. We're happy to bring this service to you free of charge through your podcast provider week after week. However, we do need your support. If you could, please be kind enough to like us at Facebook at Dead to Rights or on Twitter at Dead to Rights Pod, or simply go to your podcast provider, whether it's Google Play Music or iTunes, and drop us a good rating and maybe a word or two to help us move up the charts so that other authors and readers can find us. And we're all about bringing readers and writers together. Today, we've got a writer for you by the name of Gail Sharpe Kelly, and Gail is the author of a memoir titled Beyond My Understanding, which deals with her life before, during, and after her involvement with the Jehovah's Witnesses, and how she broke free and managed to build a good life for herself after leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses. So please give a big Dead to Rights welcome to Gail Sharpe Kelly. Good morning, Gail, and welcome to Dead to Rights. How are you this morning?
Good, thank you. How about yourself?
Sorry?
How about yourself?
Oh, very good, thanks. Very good. We're recording right now, Gail. We're recording right now, just to let you know. Did you guys get dumped on snow? We did.
No, just rain.
Oh, okay. We woke up to a winter wonderland up here in cottage country, so it's quite a surprise this morning. Just for our listeners, we're actually recording this interview on March 30th, so that's why the weather discussion this morning. So, Gail, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your book, your first book, Beyond My Understanding, and it's a memoir, and it's regarding your childhood in the Jehovah's Witnesses and your life beyond that, hence the title, Beyond My Understanding. Can you tell me a little bit about what inspired you to write this book?
Well, a friend suggested for me to read and follow the book, The Artist's Way, A Spiritual Path to Higher Creativity by Julia Cameron. So I followed the instructions in the book, and after writing 3 pages a day, it just came to me. So it wasn't planned for me to write a book, it just happened.
So you were really just writing about your own experiences and trying to get them out of yourself, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, and then before you knew it, you had a book. And hey, listen, all you aspiring writers out there, that's how a book is written, by the way.
Oh.
You know, they say a journey of a 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and a book of 100 pages begins with a single page. So it's all just one page before the other.
Right.
Yeah. Now, part of the book, when I read through it, you talk about your experiences with Al-Anon and how it helped you figure out how best to address things that were beyond your control. Can you tell me a little bit about what got you into Al-Anon and what you learned throughout that experience and how long you were involved with them?
Okay. Yes, that was my son's suggestion because he saw that I had a lot of anger. And I said, well, how's that going to help me? And he said, well, because I'm not an addict or I don't have a problem. And he says, well, what have you got to lose? So I thought, yeah, okay. So I went, and Al-Anon helped me because it took the focus for me off the person that had the addictions, and I started to focus on myself and looking after myself.
Which is really critical, yeah.
I got a feeling of peace and serenity, and my anxiety went away.
Yes.
That's the only way I can explain it to you.
I think a lot of people find that when they become involved with the Al-Anon program. I was in it briefly myself, and I can tell you that it's truly worthwhile. And you touched on something there, Gail. You said that you had a lot of anger, and it was being recognized by the people that loved you. Anger itself is a form of addiction, isn't it?
Yes, I guess it is.
Yeah, because it's a go-to place. And,
sure.
Yeah. Any place that we go to repetitively as a sort of a coping mechanism becomes a bit of an addiction. And I know in my own life, anger can be an addiction if I'm not very careful about it. And Al-Anon really can help with that because it teaches you that you can't control everything. And what you've got to do is come up through the middle, so to speak, and learn to live your life as yourself regardless of all those things you can't control. Is that a good way of saying it?
Yes, that's really good.
How long were you in? Sorry, Gail, I'm talking over you. Sorry about that. How long were you involved with the Al-Anon program?
Let me think. From about 2007, I think. Well, maybe it's been a little bit before that. Briefly in 2002, when I lived in Coburg. But then I started really going in about 2007. Mm-hmm. And I'm still affiliated with members and still thinking about going back, actually.
So really a good long time. That's good. And it continues to bring you sort of that inner peace from time to time, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Before we go any further, I'm just going to read for our listeners a little bit about the book, Beyond My Understanding. Life can be difficult at the best of times and in the best of circumstances. But imagine, if you will, a life built on the prison walls of an unbending religion. Author Gail Sharpe Kelly invites the reader to travel with her on the perilous road to freedom. Freedom from the grip of cult, the belief that a woman cannot make it on her own, and the need to control conditions and situations that are truly beyond our understanding. And I wanted to read that for our listeners just because it does kind of capture what you were getting at in the book, that, you know, a woman can make it on her own, that you can't. And the thing that has always amazed me about you, Gail, is that you'll turn your hand to almost anything.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
There aren't many. I mean, you won't do bad things. I know that. I know you well enough. But you'll turn your hand to try just about anything that takes your interest. And that's really remarkable. Anything from you've mastered the art of ceramics. You've now written a book. Tell us about a few of the other things that you've experienced in your life that have helped to build and shape who you are.
Oh, wow. Well, I guess traveling has helped a lot. Mm-hmm. When I went to Scotland in, I think it was 2014, to visit a castle that my ancestors had built, and it had just been destroyed, and I'd read about it and heard about it from my from relatives, and thought I'd never, because it's privately owned now. Mm-hmm. And I contacted this tour company, a private tour company, and they arranged for me to meet the people that owned the place. It was very nice of them to let me in, and I never thought I'd ever be in something like that. It's like that was beyond my understanding.
Yeah, it really was. What year did you go? I know you talk about it in the book. You talk about your trip to Scotland and seeing the castle and meeting the people. What year was that you went?
Pardon?
What year did you travel to Scotland?
I think it was May of 2014.
Yeah, I know you talk extensively about that trip in your book, and it just sounds like a wonderful experience. I wanted to ask you also, how did and this is going to be a bit of a tough one, but I know you've prepared for it, how did your family's commitment to the Jehovah's Witnesses shape your relationship with your parents and other family members? I know that this has always been something that's been really tough in your life. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it divided us. It separated us from the family, right? Nothing was spoken about it because of the religion. We had nothing in common with the family, that weren't Jehovah's Witnesses. And so we saw less of them, and because we did not have anything in common with them, that was also true with myself and my parents, because I would not completely open up to them because they really didn't want to hear my true feelings about the religion, only their own beliefs and thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
See?
So it kept you, when you were a child, it kept you very insular, didn't it? I know from your book that it kept you disconnected from the greater world around.
Oh, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. And then once you step out into that world, there's a real sort of a cognitive dissonance, because you no longer believe in the core shell of the faith. You know that the greater world is where you need to be, but it's really, really hard to integrate, isn't it?
Yes. And it's scary, too, because you don't know what really to believe and who to trust.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've been taught that nobody's trustworthy other than the Jehovah's Witnesses and that cult, right?
Right.
So that's the other thing, which is really weird.
And the thing I found really sad in reading the book is how the disconnect is perpetrated from generation to generation, and then culminating in the difficulties that you had in connecting with your father, which, I don't want to give a spoiler, but you did finally find a way to resolve that. So that's good. I'll let readers find out how you overcame that. But there were a number of years, a lot of years, where that was a big problem for you, weren't there?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't just the religion, right? It was my father's wife.
Yes.
That was also in it. And unfortunately, he married a real winner.
It happens.
Another story in the Naked City, right?
Yes, and you do talk about that in the book, too. So for readers, you can find all the elements of an actual life, and you're probably going to recognize a lot of those elements in your own life. I wanted to ask you, too, about any books that have inspired you or helped you. You did mention one at the outset of this interview, but I know that you're a huge reader, in particular of biographies and that kind of material. Can you tell our readers about some books that have really helped you?
Well, a lot of biographies. Shania Twain, Shirley MacLaine, Lucky Me, Jane Fonda, My Life So Far, Prime Time, Michael J. Fox, Lucky Man, Katharine Hepburn, Betty White, Barack Obama, Dreams from My Father, Ellen Bernstein, and Lessons in Becoming Myself, Julie Andrews, a memoir of early years. Like, those are, I could go on and on. And then there's a lot of, by Louise Hay, You Can Heal Yourself, The Power Is Within you. And then 2 other books by Eben Alexander, Proof of Heaven, and The Afterlife of Billy Fingers. So that was pretty unusual. I know that. But
The Afterlife of Billy Fingers.
Yeah, it was really different.
Have you had a chance yet? There's a huge bestseller out right now that I've just listened to on Audible recently that I really enjoyed. Michelle Obama, Becoming. Have you gotten that one yet?
No, I've heard a lot about it, though. But I
think you'd really enjoy it. I have a funny feeling it's right up your alley. She's very good, and if you get your hands on the Audible, she reads it herself, so it's all in her voice, and her voice. Very nice,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, Gail.
Well, a couple of other books they were different. They weren't biographers. They weren't like spiritual books, but Al-Anon literature, Courage to Change, and One Day at a Time.
The Courage to Change is a huge book for anybody who's struggling with those inner prisons, because my husband always says there are no prisons quite as strong as the ones in our minds,
That's true.
And if we can take those walls down, there really is nothing we can't enjoy and do. The positive elements of removing those prison walls are just huge. And that is, give me the title of that book again.
Which, Courage to Change?
The Courage to Change, yes, because it does come from inside us. There's another great one called The Courage to Heal, and it's geared towards survivors of childhood abuse, and it's a bit of a tome, like it's a huge book, but you can just refer to elements of it, and it's very, very helpful. Now, I wanted to ask you, what is next for Gail Sharpe Kelly? What are you going to do next?
I really don't know. I want to travel. Right? I'm trying to redecorate my place. And that's about it for now. I'm just taking it one day at a time.
And what message do you hope that readers will take away from Beyond My Understanding?
Well, that we're not alone. I believe there is a higher power or a spiritual being or God that watches over us. But we need to know how to ask for guidance instead of asking for what we want when we pray. I believe you should pray for God's guidance, what He or she wants best for us.
Yeah.
That we look for.
He or she. I like that. I like that. I very much like that because he or she, I mean, whatever your understanding of that higher power is, really.
Yes. Yeah. You know.
Yeah. Unlike these entrenched religions that believe it's only, as you say in your book, my way or the highway. I mean, I really do believe that all roads lead to Rome, like the old saying says, and there's no right or wrong way to find your inner peace and your happiness and that guidance that you crave. What has come to you as a result of writing this book? What gifts have you discovered?
I feel like a lot of fulfillment that I never realized I would, and kind of like an emotional release that I never expected either. Mm-hmm. That's what I would say.
Yeah, because you've been freed to say what you want to say, really, and I think that's what draws a lot of writers to the art of writing. You know, I mean, some get in it for the money, of course, but I think almost even they turn to writing because there's a need to express, and I think that that's one of the most fulfilling things about any art is meeting that need to express yourself. How was the book accepted by your family?
Oh, that's another story in the negative. I don't really know how to. Well, some of my family members, I shouldn't say that, are very excited. They want to read it. Some are far away, so they're having a hard time finding it. But I'm going to send it over to France to my niece. And,
yes, I was going to suggest that. Just pop it in the mail to her.
And another one in Mexico, but she's coming over in April. So my own family, I think my grandson is very excited. But he's busy right now in college. My kids, I'm not sure. They're kind of I don't know what it is really. Whether they're afraid of what was going to in it, but I've told them there's nothing in it that So I don't know.
You handled the book very tastefully when you were dealing with people that you knew and that you were close to. You really dealt with that very tastefully. So I don't think they've got any actual concerns. I mean. In the first place, you don't really name people except for a few that you had expressed permission to name. And in the second hand, you haven't taken a real negative approach to any of the people. I was impressed with how well you handled it because it's not always easy. I mean, we all have our own point of view, and we all assume our point of view is right. That's why we call it our point of view. And sometimes you have to just step back and recognize that everyone you're talking about has their point of view too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not easy. So I mean, I encourage your family members to read the book, but they either will or they won't, You don't necessarily write it for, sometimes you write for yourself, and if readers come along, that's terrific.
That's right. And I've got a lot of great response from friends.
Excellent.
Excellent. And people I hardly know either, actually.
Excellent. Well, it's available in print, in Kindle, or in e-published edition, so you can find it at Barnes & Noble's for Nook Book, or iBooks at Apple. You can find it at Sony. It'll be available at Amazon, of course, in both print or Kindle at Amazon. And it's called Beyond My Understanding by Gail Sharpe Kelly. And it came out in, I'm going to get the date. Came out in February of 2019, so it's brand new, hot off the presses. And if you're interested in the subjects of substance abuse, self-esteem, or abuse and recovery, this is a good choice for you. And it's just a beautiful book, if I do say so myself. Thank you very much for joining us on Dead to Rights, Gail. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. We want to send a big thank you to Gail Sharpe Kelly for joining us on the podcast. You can find her memoir, Beyond My Understanding, at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, or any place where great books and ebooks are retailed. Thanks again for joining us this week, and we hope you'll join us for future episodes. Over the next few weeks, I'm going to do something just a little different. I'm going to talk to you about the actual indie publishing industry, where it has come from over the last decade and where we think it's going, and how that impacts you as a writer. So stay with us over the next few weeks for that type of information, something just a little bit different rather than doing interviews. And then we'll come back to interviews again after that; those segments are complete. And because we will be coming back to interviews, by all means, don't forget to contact us if you'd like to be featured as a published author. We're at carrickpublishing@rogers.com. You can also reach out to us anytime on Facebook or Twitter. I'm at Donna_Carrick, and my husband is Alex_Carrick. Our podcast is at Dead to Rights Pod, and you can also find us at Carrick Pub, or on Facebook under all the usual places: Dead to Rights, Carrick Publishing, Donna Carrick, Alec Carrick. And we also have a Facebook group that we've been managing for the last few years titled Excerpt Flight Deck for readers and authors. And that's going to be a little bit prominent coming up soon because next year, 2020, we are hoping to put out a new Carrick Publishing anthology. And we'll be opening up the Excerpt Flight Deck for people to come to us and submit stories for that anthology. So thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time at Dead to Rights, the podcast.
A dusty road, a man alone. His vital signs go on hold. And I don't know what you've been told, but the years have turned my eyes gold. And I told you what you told me, we'd never be in the same boat for free. Yet it rides, let it rock.